Have you experienced anxiety, depression, bloating, stomach pain, inability to lose weight, impotence, libido, fatigue, insomnia, joint pain, constipation or diarrhea, or craving sugar? If so, you could have a food intolerance or a food sensitivity. My name is Amy Lechner, and this is my advice. I started working in wellness over 20 years ago, and I started working with people on dietary and lifestyle choices, as well as supplements and essential oils. I'm a traditional naturopath and a certified aromatherapist, so I work with people in modalities of wellness. And today I'm going to talk to you about a food sensitivity test. And a food sensitivity test, or called a food intolerance test, FIT test for short, is to test sensitivities to food and how that leads to an inflammatory response in our bodies. I first want to go over a little bit of a difference of what a food allergy is, an allergy, and a food sensitivity so that we understand the difference. A food allergy is a very quick reaction where our bodies react to a food that we eat, and we could have a rash, we could have swollen lips. There's a variety of histamine responses. What it's referred to as in a blood test is an IgE response. I always remember E for emergency. It acts quickly. So the food sensitivity test, or FIT test, tests food intolerances and how our bodies don't tolerate certain foods well. Those sensitivities are very subtle. It's the IgG response. That response can occur from anywhere from 1 day to the point of ingestion up to 3 days. So it makes it very difficult to detect a certain food that you're sensitive to. For example, years ago, I had severe contact dermatitis, and I had a rash on my hands, and I was really struggling. So I eliminated common allergens like gluten, wheat, and dairy, and egg. And I decided that I was, doing everything that I could. I still had food sensitivity. When I did the FIT test, what happened was soybean was one of the things that I was super highly reactive to, that was in my everyday diet. There's soybean oil in salad dressing. There's soybean oil in chocolate, which I love. And so I started to eliminate everything with soybean oil in it. And within probably 2 weeks to a month, my hands started to clear up. And I was like, it was magic. And so I haven't had anything with soy in it for a very long time. And that was really hard. But I don't have the inflammatory response to the contact dermatitis. So that's kind of a little bit of how it works. So with the food sensitivity test, we test up to 176 different foods, food additives, and categories within food. So it could be grains, nuts, seeds, preservatives. And there's one test that I like, it's 132 foods that we test for, but you can do the 176. And it's a dried blood cell test, and they test for the IgG response. Now, what sets this test apart from others is that it's very highly refined and very sensitive. So some tests that you can get just kind of order online or whatever, they're not as sensitive. So they're not going to give you a very accurate picture of what your sensitivities are. The other thing I like about this is they've just started testing for zonulin, which is a protein that indicates if there's leaky gut or a gut barrier breakdown, which also leads to inflammation in the body. So those are the two things that I really like about the test. So when you get the test, there's an instrument to prick your finger, and you prick your finger with the instrument. It's in a sanitized packet, and then kind of milk your finger so that you can get the blood to where you've pricked your finger. Put the blood blots on a card. It's marked, and you fill in the circles with the blood. It dries, and you put it in a pre-stamped envelope and send it to KBMO Diagnostics, and they receive the blood test sample, and then they are the ones who run the test. As a provider, I get the result of the test, and then we review the test together. We look at ways to eliminate foods with the highest response on your food sensitivity test. So I used myself as an example for soybean oil. So what we would do in that instance, if I was working with you, soybean oil came back very high. So we would start an elimination program and a reintroduction program to see what your sensitivity is. I knew that mine was from my hands. It was showing up in my hands. So I already knew that if I reintroduced it, I was going to have a reaction with my hands. Sometimes people might have joint inflammation, maybe higher cholesterol markers. There may be inflammatory markers with neurological disorders. It's very, very wide ranging, and it happens to a lot of us. A lot of times people have like a gluten sensitivity. If they eat pizza, they notice like 12 hours later, their stomach hurts or their joints hurt in the morning when they wake up, but there's no way of knowing that unless you start becoming aware of it. And so this test really just kind of highlights or points to how we can reduce the inflammatory response in the body to get you to a path of wellness. I had one lady who was in her 70s and she was having a lot of joint pain and inflammation, and really curious as to why. She was really intrigued by the thought that foods could do that. And yeast and came back very high, and a preservative, polysorbate 80. And what was really interesting was the polysorbate 80 was in some of the pharmaceutical medications that she was taking as a preservative. And so when she started to eliminate that, she started to notice a reduction in her joint pain. The yeast, which is in bread and all kinds of, different pastries and stuff, as she eliminated those, of course she lost weight because she was eliminating bread, but she felt so much relief. And when she went to the doctor for her blood work, the nurse asked her if she had done anything different because some of her blood levels came back into range that were out of range. And she said the only thing that she had done was to eliminate the bread and the yeast and really just, kind of watching the foods that she was sensitive to. And she said that they were so intrigued by all of that. So that was really cool. I've had a few people. I had one lady that she, coffee was really, really high on her list. And she said, I drink tea every day. And I was like, perfect. But the next thing down was walnuts. She said, I eat pastries every day with walnuts on them. So she said, I'll try real hard to give those up. But as you start to eliminate those foods and then reintroduce them, then you start to notice, oh, that did really make a difference in my life. I had one lady who had a sensitivity to eggs. As soon as we started eliminating the eggs, she started to notice that her symptoms, she had an autoimmune disorder, and she started to notice some of those symptoms started to quiet down. As soon as she would reintroduce it, within 2 days, she would have trouble sleeping, her pain levels were increased. So it's very powerful to see. And then when I have people eliminate and start to reintroduce, I have them do a little bit of like a food journal so that they can start to see patterns. If you have a wheat sensitivity and you eliminate wheat and gluten, and in 2 weeks, you start to reintroduce it. And then you start to notice maybe you just have a little bit of abdominal stomach pain and bloating, but it's nothing that's really inconvenient. At that point, I would tell you to go ahead and know that you can have that every once in a while. But if you have it repeatedly, it's going to raise your inflammatory markers. So it kind of just gives you a little information on how foods can impact our wellness and our well-being. Food sensitivities affect 100 million people worldwide, and it ranges from 50% in adults to 70% in children. So there is no age separation. It can be children. I have had an infant as young as 18 months old that I've tested. She was having a lot of issues with bowel movements and stuff. So we did a test to see if there were some things. And I think strawberries and shellfish were two things that came back, even at a very early age. So there is no age that it discriminates against. You can have a food sensitivity at any age. If you're experiencing some of the symptoms that we've talked about and you would like to know more, please reach out to me and let me help you discover how you can eliminate some of these foods through the fit test. I can have my lab drop ship that to you and we can get that in your hands. You can do the test and within a couple weeks you can find out more information about your own food sensitivities.